Once, the future wasn't sleek and sterile, it was grand, brass-plated, and full of wonder. At Disneyland Paris, Discoveryland dared to dream differently, but over time, that dream has started to slip away. When Euro Disney opened in 1992, the Imagineers were determined not to repeat Tomorrowland's mistakes. They envisioned instead a land that would remain timeless, a European response to a problem Tomorrowland's worldwide has struggled with, a futuristic aesthetic that aged too quickly. Discoveryland would instead present the future as seen through the eyes of Europe's greatest dreamers, Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, and Leonardo da Vinci. This choice wasn't merely cosmetic, it was philosophical. The Imagineers believed that by rooting their vision in the enduring works of history's great visionaries, Discoveryland could outlast trends. In Anaheim and Orlando, Tomorrowland aged poorly. By the 1980s, sleek white spires felt less like today's future and more like yesterday's. Paris needed something timeless and unique, so Tony Baxter and his team turned to Europe's cultural heritage. Jules Verne's From the Earth to the Moon provided a distinctly European retrofuturism. Da Vinci's designs inspired the land's mechanical details, and with this as the basis, Discoveryland wasn't just avoiding obsolescence, it was a celebration of imagination. The origins of Discoveryland can be traced back to the late 1970s, when Imagineer Tony Baxter was developing a concept for Disneyland called Discovery Bay. Although never realized, concept art reveals that this land would have featured the Nautilus and the Hyperion airship, both of which later found a home in Paris's Discoveryland. Discovery Bay was imagined as a fantastical, technologically advanced San Francisco of the late 1800s. Heavily inspired by Jules Verne-influenced film The Island at the Top of the World. Planned attractions included a journey aboard the Hyperion airship to discover a lost Arctic civilization, a thrilling Nautilus submarine adventure complete with a restaurant set in its Grand Salon, and fantastical experiences such as Professor Marvel's Balloon Descent, a Skyway-style ride which would have connected areas of the land. When it came to designing Disneyland Paris, Imagineers wanted to ensure that they would bring fresh ideas to the original Disneyland concept, specifically taking into account European culture. Early concept art shows that Disney even considered building a Jules Verne-inspired tower instead of the traditional Princess Castle, as a nod to Verne's deep connection to Paris and European culture. As one of France's most celebrated authors, Verne captured the 19th century spirit of scientific progress and adventure in his works such as Journey to the Center of the Earth and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Many of these stories were conceived in Paris and reflected the city's role as a hub of innovation and imagination. But rather than anchoring the park, the Jules Verne aesthetic would instead take the place of Tomorrowland, in what would instead be called Discoveryland. Early concepts for Discoveryland featured a space mountain which looked very similar to the one at Disneyland, and there's even art showing a Discoveryland which would have taken its inspiration from the 1933 Chicago World's Fair. One of the main attractions in this land would have been a sky ride featuring large steampunk-style zeppelins, but ultimately these ideas never came to be. Instead, Discoveryland took its cues from Verne's ornate vision of science. On opening day in 1992, Discoveryland featured Star Tours, Orbitron, Autopia, Visionarium, and the Hyperion Cafe. Star Tours was already familiar to park goers, but here its exterior matched the Verne aesthetic. The ride entrance was given a golden, brass-plated setting. The Orbitron, Paris's version of Tomorrowland's Astro Orbiter, resembled a 19th century planetary model, taking its inspiration from Da Vinci's drawings of the solar system. Autopia, another classic Disneyland ride, was starved to feel like a retro-futuristic invention. Inspiration for this Disney classic's new look came from 1930s science magazines and the Disneyland television episode released in 1958, titled Magic Highway USA. The Hyperion Cafe, the land's quick-service restaurant, was adorned with an airship, and the entrance featured gleaming brass, riveted details, and kinetic sculptures that move like clockwork. Visionarium was unique to Paris. This circle vision film starred Jules Verne and H.G. Wells traveling through time. This was an ambitious attraction blending time travel, European history, and humor. The idea was that every building, attraction, and even restaurant told a unified story. It was immersive, bold, and unlike any other Tomorrowland. Designs of the land structures focused on rounded forms over sharp edges to convey a message of futuristic optimism, while antennas were commonly used to decorate buildings, not just to add height, but also to force guests to look up to the sky. This unity of theme gave Discoveryland a sense of purpose and identity that other Tomorrowlands lacked. When Discoveryland first opened, there was also a quick-service restaurant located at the very front of the land. Café de Visionaries paid tribute to the greatest visionaries of all time, and featured a beautiful mural portraying legendary stories written by Jules Verne. Sadly, the restaurant closed in 1993 due to a lack of demand and was replaced by an arcade in 1994. In 1995, 3 years after the park originally opened, Space Mountain de la Terre à la Lune debuted, and many argue that with this, Discoveryland reached its peak. Inspired by Jules Verne's novel From the Earth to the Moon, the attraction was a masterpiece of storytelling and engineering. The cannon launch design, the musical score by Stephen Bramson, and the intricate Victorian details made it arguably the best Space Mountain ever built. The Nautilus walkthrough opened a year earlier, offering guests a chance to explore Captain Nemo's submarine. These additions deepen the storytelling, making Discoveryland feel like an entire world rather than just a collection of rides. However, the original plan for Space Mountain at Disneyland Paris was actually far grander. Disney were going to build Discovery Mountain, and inside would not only have been Space Mountain, but numerous attractions and dining spaces, including the Nautilus, an underwater restaurant, a drop tower, and even a replica of Epcot's Horizons. Of course, a project this big would need an equally large budget, something that could not be accommodated from the original construction budget for the park in 1992. Disney therefore decided to delay this project and planned to give it the green light if the park had a successful opening year or two. Unfortunately, the opening of Disneyland Paris, then known as Euro Disney, was far from a success, with the park losing money and attracting way less visitors than expected. Therefore, the plans for Discovery Mountain had to be rethought. Space Mountain From the Earth to the Moon was set to be called Discovery Mountain all the way up until about a month before the coaster opened, but it was decided that the name Space Mountain was a better fit for marketing. However, to this day, you can still see numerous signs in the ride's queue which contain the initials DM for Discovery Mountain. The opening of Space Mountain is seen as a turning point for the resort as a whole. The coaster drew in a huge audience, and only a year after the ride opened, the park posted its very first year of profit.
Your destination, outer space. Your speed, astronomical. Your closest encounter, asteroids. Between the Earth and the Moon lies the adventure. Space Mountain, the greatest ride in the universe, at Disneyland Paris.
For over a decade, Discoveryland's cohesive vision largely remained, with one minor blip in this vision opening in 1997. This blip was a supposedly temporary Pizza Planet restaurant. Located behind Space Mountain, the loosely themed restaurant from Toy Story was built inside a temporary marquee. Yet it astonishingly didn't officially close until 2016. The location originally opened as a quick-service restaurant before it became a buffet restaurant in 2010. In its final years, the restaurant's opening hours were unpredictable to say the least, often opening only to provide additional capacity during the park's busiest days. But despite now being gone, the damage this location began is far from gone with it. In 2005, Space Mountain was updated to become Space Mountain Mission 2. This new journey took riders beyond the moon to the very edge of our universe. This update removed the Victorian theming and replaced it with more modern, futuristic elements. The cars were repainted, the cannon launch was altered, and new effects were added. But most disappointingly of all was that the amazing original score was replaced by a new, more modern-sounding one. Most disliked this update as it diluted much of the Jules Verne theme that had originally been present. But even worse in this update, in 2006 the Visionarium closed and was replaced by yet another Toy Story themed location, this being the attraction Buzz Lightyear Laser Blast. Sure, the ride was popular, but its colourful Toy Story aesthetic clashed with Discoveryland's steampunk elegance. Sure, Pizza Planet already existed as a clash, but at least this restaurant was tucked away in the back. Buzz Lightyear Laser Blast was right at the front of the land, and with this, the land's carefully curated vision truly began to fray. The arrival of Buzz Lightyear signalled a shift away from Jules Verne towards Disney IP-driven decisions. In 2017, Star Tours became Star Tours The Adventure Continues, updating the ride's film, and sadly with this, also the attraction's exterior. The new exterior is far more in line with the sleek modern white look of Tomorrowland, not Discoveryland. That same year, Space Mountain was rethemed as Hyperspace Mountain, which brought a Star Wars overlay to the roller coaster. While thrilling, this new theming abandoned the Verne-inspired concept that made Discoveryland so unique. The brass cannon and Victorian details now housed a Star Wars battle, an exciting experience but a betrayal of the original concept. It was originally thought that this overlay would be temporary, but it's still in place today. Not yet discussed are Discoveryland's 2 theatres, both of which actually open with the park. The first, Videopolis, debuted with Rock Show, the only production here ever themed to Jules Verne. By 1993, however, it was already hosting a Beauty and the Beast musical. Over the years, Videopolis has cycled through a range of shows entirely unrelated to Discoveryland's concept, from stage musicals to the Jedi Training Academy. More recently, it has been reduced to screening Disney shorts or simply sitting unused, its original potential forgotten. The second venue, the Discoveryland Theatre, initially presented the iconic 3D film Captain EO, until 1998 when it was replaced by Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. While neither film perfectly embodied Discoveryland's vision, both at least fit the broader Tomorrowland idea of futuristic spectacle. Captain EO returned in 2010 before leaving permanently in 2015. And since 2018, the theatre has hosted Mickey's PhilharMagic. Though a charming show, it has no connection to Discoveryland's Jules Verne futurism, or Tomorrowland more generally. Its presence underscores the creeping dilution of the land's identity, shifting it from a cohesive narrative into a patchwork of Disney IPs. These theatres are important to note as they illustrate both the challenges and the missed opportunities of maintaining Discoveryland's theme. Occasional deviations are not the problem. Disney could have integrated beloved franchises in ways that still respected the land's distinctive aesthetic. I mean, just think, Star Tours has been present right from the start. But instead, they've opted for easy brand synergy, abandoning the unified vision that once set Discoveryland apart. Discoveryland was conceived as a radical alternative to Tomorrowland, designed to escape the curse of futurism that quickly dates itself. Yet, in its embrace of popular franchises, Discoveryland has become the very thing it sought to avoid, a land that feels cobbled together. The steampunk architecture still dazzles, but its meaning is blurred. The Nautilus sits quietly while Buzz Lightyear floods the space with neon. Hyperspace Mountain continues to thrill, but lacks Verne's sense of wonder. What remains is a watered-down dream. Discoveryland once promised a future shaped by dreamers, not corporations. A bold experiment in theme art design that honors European culture, while daring to break with trends. Its brass towers and celestial orbs embodied imagination unbound. Today, the towers still gleam, but their story has been lost. Buzz Lightyear, Hyperspace Mountain, and PhilharMagic may succeed individually, but together they reveal a retreat from risk-taking into the safety of profitable IP. Discoveryland's story is a cautionary tale. Even the boldest visions can fade when their stewards forget why they mattered. And yet, the bones remain. The Hyperion still gleams, the Nautilus still waits. Discoveryland may be diluted, but perhaps it is not beyond repair. Perhaps Disneyland Paris can still choose to dream again. Just as Michael Jackson's Captain EO found a place in Discoveryland on opening day, perhaps Buzz Lightyear and Darth Vader could too. But instead of being thoughtfully integrated into the land's vision, they'd been dropped in disruptively, fracturing the story that Discoveryland once told. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know how you think Discoveryland could be saved. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, check out some of my other videos and the links in the description.